Hello everyone and welcome to Multilingual. How are you doing? I hope you're doing really well, although I think you are preparing for your FCE at the moment, or maybe you're thinking about taking this exam in the nearest future. If it is true about you, please watch this video because here I'm going to tell you today what FCE is, and I'm going to give you some really helpful advice on how to pass it better. FCE is a first certificate in English. It's a standard Cambridge exam, and it's an upper intermediate level examination representing the level B2, which is quite a high level of English. It tests your generally effective command of English and also your ability to handle communication in familiar situations. And now let's have a look at the timing of the exam. So usually there are two candidates in the exam, so a pair of candidates, and there are 4 parts in the FCE. The part 1 will take you about 2 minutes, part 2, 3 and 4 about 4 minutes, so there are 14 minutes in total. If there are 3 candidates, then some time is added up, of course, but it has no other effect on the exam itself. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. 14 minutes do not mean that it's your pure speaking time. No, it includes everything. Looking at the tasks, reading the rubrics by the examiner. So in total there are 14 minutes, and after 14 minutes you are supposed to leave the room and finish with the exam. Okay, and now let's jump into the first part of the exam. It's an interview, and here you're going to get questions on familiar topics. I have to tell you at this point that all questions, examples, pictures you're going to see in my video were not taken from previous Cambridge exams and not from the present Cambridge exams, because I'm just not allowed to do so. So everything you're going to see in this video is a product of my fantasy, but of course everything is similar to the actual tasks in the exam. So let's start with the questions first. Here are very simple questions for you to answer. For example, where are you from? What did you do last summer? What is or was your favorite subject in school? What do you enjoy doing in your free time? And what are your plans for next holiday? I would recommend you not to worry much at this point, even if you make some grammar mistakes. Imagine that this part is a warm-up. If you go to the gym, you do not start with heavy weights immediately, right? So first you jump and run a little bit to warm your body up, to start with the exercises. The same is the aim of this part of the exam, just to warm you up, to make you feel relaxed and comfortable. Please reply spontaneously, give short answers. It's not a monologue, just 2-3 sentences would be enough. For example, the question, how did you spend last summer? You can say, I traveled to Spain. We were renting a house there, and I had a great time with my family. That's enough. And now let's get into part 2 of the exam. Here you have an opportunity to speak longer. It's called a long turn. That's why you can show your best grammar and vocabulary skills. So you're given 2 pictures. You have to compare the pictures and you have to comment on them. And you're going to get exactly 1 minute to do so. You also have to listen to the other candidate who is going to describe their pictures, because afterwards you have to respond to your partner's pictures to give your opinion. An examiner will ask you a question based on the other candidate's pictures. So please listen to the other candidate to respond properly. Here is my example of the second part. For example, you are given these 2 pictures and a question for you to think about, to comment on. Whose time in the garden seems to be more satisfying? So first you compare the pictures, you say what you see there, what the difference is, and then you also have to answer the question. For example, you can say, it looks more satisfying what the friends in the second picture are doing, because I'm also at the same age and I like spending time with my friends in the garden, not only eating and having barbecue, but also playing some outdoor sports like badminton in this case. Remember that you're given exactly 1 minute for this task, so use the time, try to speak for as long as 1 minute, because the examiner will always stop you when the time has expired, so do not think about the time, just keep speaking and speaking. Now let's imagine these two pictures were given to the other candidates, and now the other candidate has finished with speaking, and you're going to get this question based on the pictures. So now you have to say, which of the gardens would you prefer to be in? And you are given 30 seconds to respond to this question. So you can say, I would prefer to be in the first garden because I like spending time with my family, in this case with the father. We also like having barbecue, especially in the summertime, and etc., etc. Now let's get into the part 3, which is called collaborative task. It takes you about 4 minutes, and it consists of 2 parts. The first is the discussion phase, where you have to exchange information, attitudes, opinions with your partner, so you have to collaborate together. And in the second part, you're going to get a question. It's called the so-called decision phase, where you have to negotiate about something with your partner. Let me give you an example for this. Here you can see the topic in the middle of the page, having pets at home, and there are 5 prompts around the topic. And you have to discuss probably, or if possible, all the points with the other candidate. What does having pets at home mean? Maybe it brings you in contact with other pet owners, or it teaches you responsibility. It increases an opportunity for exercise and outdoor activities, increases your personal safety, gives you a feeling of not being alone. Use the time to speak as long as possible, negotiate, collaborate with the other candidate, try to speak about every single prompt around the topic, express your opinion, share your experience if you have some. Right, and to be as interactive as possible, because as you know, there are 2 candidates in there and you're not alone, and it's a dialogue, not a monologue. The part 4 is the so-called discussion. Here you're given about 4 minutes time. You have to respond to examiner's questions, and all these questions are based on the topic discussed in the part 3. Remember, in today's video, it's having pets at home. You also have to discuss the questions with the partner if you are invited to do so by the examiner. Always listen to the other candidate attentively, because the examiner will ask you, what do you think? Do you agree? What about you? So be attentive throughout the exam. Do not daydream, please. This happens sometimes, and then the examiner has to repeat the question, and it might make not a very good impression. And it might make you nervous as well. So be focused, stay focused. And here are some possible questions you could get in the part 4. They are all based on the topic having pets at home, remember? For example, you can be asked, why do you think so many people keep pets at home nowadays? Or why are some pets more usual than others? Or can a pet become a member of the family? Here you could share your own experience. Maybe you could say, when I was a kid, we had a dog and it was a member of our family. Question 4, how can people contribute to the pet shelters and how important are they? So you could say that people could contribute a lot to the pet shelters, and we have some in our town. So if people do not buy a dog or a cat, just go to the pet shelter and adopt one, it would be a great contribution. And again, if the other candidate is asked to answer one of these questions, you have to be attentive, remember, because the examiner will ask you, and what do you think, and do you agree? Some of these questions might be thrown to you as a group, so you have to discuss one of these questions with the other candidates. So be focused and be interactive and at this point. Taking the FCE, please keep the criteria in mind. You're not only tested on your grammar and vocabulary skills, but also on discourse management. That means that you are able to speak fluently, to connect your ideas with different conjunctions like even though, although, if, because, etc. And your pronunciation is also important at this point. Try to stick to one accent. If it's British English, then it's British. If it's American, Australian English, whatever you choose, it shouldn't be Cambridge or British English in the exam. Every accent is accepted as long as your pronunciation is intelligible, the melody of the sentences is accurate, and the pronunciation in general is close to the standard pronunciation. It's also important to be interactive. That's where you're tested on interactive communication. Remember, in some tasks, you are asked about your partner's pictures, and there you have to give your opinion on them, comment on them. Try to link your ideas, connect your ideas with the ideas of your partner. Try to be interactive throughout the collaborative task, part 3 and 4, asking questions like, what do you think? What about you? Do you agree? Trying to initiate the conversation, trying to interact with your partner throughout the exam, because it will give you extra points. So remember about the criteria. It's not only grammar and vocabulary, there are some other points which are being tested too. And now, as promised, I would like to share my top tips from my examining practice with you. And the first tip, number 1, really important, I think, is please be friendly, open, and positive throughout the exam. Not only with the examiner, but also with the other candidate. You can be really nervous when you come into the exam. I really understand it. I remember myself being a student and taking exams. You know what helped me? When I realized that the exam is not a torture. I'm not going to be tortured by the examiners. In the Cambridge exam, we're not going to torture you and to look for your mistakes. We are competence-oriented. That means we're looking at your strengths, not at your weaknesses. If you smile, it will help you lose the, that feeling of tension maybe. So a smile is always helpful and makes a good impression on everyone in the room. And see the exam as an ability to show your best performance. Because in the past, you had been practicing a lot, you had been learning a lot of vocabulary, and now it's time for you to perform, to show yourself, to show off, I would say. The tip 2 is keep in mind the criteria of the exam, especially the interactive communication. Sometimes examinees think that the exam is focused only on them. They have to deliver a monologue. But you also have to involve the other candidate. be more interactive. Try to find those phrases like, what do you think? Do you agree? What about you? It always gives you extra marks. Tip number 3. People get really scared if they make a mistake and then they notice that. If so, try to correct yourself. It is possible. Correct yourself if you made a mistake. If not, just move on. I'm sure you'll be better in the next part. And the tip number 4 is, do not get distracted if the examiner interferes or stops you. We have to do so. Cambridge is a standard exam, which means that everyone gets the same amount of time for the exam to be fair for every candidate. If the examiner stops you or interferes with your discussion, it doesn't mean we're not interested. And it doesn't mean you're speaking nonsense. No, we just have to stop because the time has expired, and that's it. And the tip number 5 concerns the preparation. Sometimes you can get quite difficult questions, especially in the final discussion part. Questions about community, about society, about environment. They might be difficult to respond to, even if in your native language. So during the preparation process, try to read and to be informed as much as possible about the situation happening around you. Listen to the news, read a newspaper, and try to be updated on what's going on so that you can express your opinion and contribute to the conversation with your candidate. Of course, you're not going to be marked on your ideas because we're testing your ability to speak and using your grammar and vocabulary, remember your pronunciation, etc. But if you have no opinion on something and you don't know what the examiner is asking you about, then it would be difficult to answer the question, right? So I would recommend you to be more open and updated at the preparation time so that you are just able to respond to the questions properly, especially in the final part. That's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you've already passed your FCE, please leave in a comment down below how your experience was, to share it with other people preparing. If you're still preparing for the exam, ask me questions if you have any. I will try to answer them. If you like this video, please give me a thumb up to give me some more motivation and support. And also subscribe to this channel not to miss more helpful videos on it. Good luck with your exams. Remember to stay friendly, positive, and well prepared. And I'm sure you'll pass it with flying colors. Thank you and goodbye.